Ticket to Ride Europe is a standalone expansion for the popular series of Ticket to Ride rail building games. Ticket to Ride Europe is a little more strategic than the original Ticket to Ride, with a few more rules and a new, more challenging map.
So in Ticket to Ride Europe, players build train routes across a map of Europe in order to build the most extensive and functional rail system. It plays in about 1 to 2 hours and can support from 2 to 5 players. It's also compatible with both of the map expansions to the Ticket to Ride series, as well as the Alvin and Dexter Monster expansion. And it's got one dedicated expansion, which is Europa 1912.
Setup in Ticket to Ride Europe is minimal and very quick. Once you've got the board set up, each player receives their train tokens, and then they receive a hand of 4 train cards and 2 route tickets. Route tickets can get you extra victory points if you complete them, but if you fail to complete them, you will get a victory point penalty. Extra train cards and extra route tickets are placed face down in decks at the side of the board, with the top 5 train cards placed face up.
In each turn, players can either complete a route, draw more cards, or build a station. In order to complete a route, a player puts down a set of train cards with a number and color equivalent to that of the route that they're trying to complete. Once they've done this, they can then put their train tokens on that route in order to block it for other players. Partial route building is not allowed, and the longer your route is, the more points you get. Locomotive cards can also be substituted for cards of any color.
If players choose not to build in a turn, they can draw cards. So you can draw 2 face-down train cards or 2 face-up train cards, but if you draw a locomotive face-up, that counts as 2 cards. You can also draw route tickets, in which case you draw 3, and you have to keep at least 1.
One of the major additions to Ticket to Ride Europe is the stations. Building a station in a city where 2 or more routes intersect lets you use a route built by another player in order to complete one of your destination tickets. Players can choose to build a station on their turn instead of taking another action. However, you've only got 3 stations to use over the course of the game, and each one costs more than the previous one to build. Players also get 4 more points at the end of the game for every unused station, so you've really got to balance and decide if playing a station is worth the other associated costs.
There are also 2 new kinds of routes in Ticket to Ride Europe. So a ferry requires a locomotive to complete. A tunnel adds an element of risk. So when you build a tunnel, first you play the requisite cards, but then you have to draw the top 3 train cards from the face-down deck. For each one of those 3 cards, it's either a locomotive or that's the same color as the route that you just built, you're going to have to play an extra card from your hand to complete your tunnel.
The game ends when one player's stock of train tokens has been reduced to 2 or less. After that, everybody gets 1 more turn, and then the final points are tallied, and the player with the most points wins.
So, good things about this game. The art is beautiful. Outside on the box art as well as on the board art, all gorgeous. You're going to love it. Also, there are 2 map expansions which have just come out. People are very excited about them. A con to this game, however, it can feel a bit solitary. There's no mechanics built into the game for discussion or for talking to the fellow players about what you're doing and what you're building on the board. So you can feel like you're playing all by yourself for the 1 to 2 hours that it takes, and then the only time you actually interact is when you're adding up your points at the end.
Another slightly more personal con is the train building theme is something that not everybody is going to find super exciting. I personally really prefer kind of adventure, dungeon crawly type games, and this just doesn't hold quite as much appeal. As well, the simplicity of the game and the fact that there's really a limited number of actions you can take can make it feel a little bit repetitive towards the end. That being said, both the simplicity and the theme can be a real draw for a lot of people. Train games are super popular for a reason, and it seems to be one of the themes that has a really broad appeal across generations. This is a really great game to bust out at family gatherings because it often appeals to both older and younger players, and the simple rule set means that you can easily introduce it to people who aren't really into strategy games of this kind.